I will call to order the Mundelein Elementary School District 75 Board meeting for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, 7:01 p.m. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Holly.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
St. Clair. Here. Kinsky.
Here.
Gallegos.
Here.
Fingerhut. Here. Villagier.
Here.
Present.
Okay, thank you. The first item on the agenda, as always, is citizens' comments. Do we have anyone present this evening who wishes to address the board? I believe Nikki Eric is here to address us. Good evening, Nikki.
Good evening, everyone. I feel so underdressed. So.
I
I'm
like the
sorry.
sweatshirt
I
though.
guess I'm representing the marching
You
band,
look just
the
fine.
fabulous marching Mustangs. How about that win at the
That was
festival?
awesome.
So anyway, I'm back again. I'm the president of the District 75 STEAM Foundation, in case you forgot. And I told you I was going to try to come back and give you another check for our multimedia project that we're working on. And I'm here to tell you about another check. I'm actually going to keep it because it's made out to the STEAM Foundation. It's from the Granger Foundation in the amount of $10,000. And we're going to put it in our account. And we're actually probably going to write it directly to the contractor. So to give you a brief update on what's going on, Brian Longley, who's the digital literacy teacher at Carl Sandburg, spent a little over $18,000 from that first check from the from the Medline Foundation, right? They gave us the 20,000 and bought all kinds of equipment for his curriculum with the video making and the production, all kinds of cameras and cables and such. And they've been doing the TNN, the Tiger News Network broadcasts, and he's been teaching things about video production. And I believe we'll also be able to implement that when we get to the winter STEAM camps and we teach video production and short filmmaking. And with the leftover from that and with this check, we'll be able to move into the next phase, which is creating the audio studio portion, where we'll teach music and sound engineering. So we're going to get started with that phase. And hopefully there is a little bit of construction that has to happen, but everything we're hoping will be ready for winter STEAM camps. And we do have the interest of the music teachers at Carl Sandburg, Muldoon, Carol Holt, and the new teacher, Matthew Fink. All want to take the training to learn how to use that equipment for the sound engineering. And as Morley gets ready and I come back to visit again, maybe I can bring a little fancy PowerPoint and show you some pictures, show you some of the work the kids have been doing. And yeah, that's the update. And this is the check.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anyway, so thanks for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone online?
There's one person online just came on.
All right, we are in the citizens comment portion of the board meeting. If you would like to make a comment to the board, please click the raise hand icon on the bottom of the screen. Okay, we're going to move on to District 75 reports. First up is the business office.
Good evening. Tonight we are coming to you requesting approval of the 2022 school maintenance project grant. If we go to the next slide, so the school maintenance project grant is not always funded by the state, but this year they are funding it, and it gives us the ability to use about $50,000 towards a project. What we have decided to do is, I think you may recall the changes that we made at Lincoln. All of these changes are great and are really assisting the student with the needs for this equipment. Well, that student is now moving to Washington, will be moving to Washington actually. So our plan with this grant is to take that money and do the same thing at the Washington playground. So we're coming to you asking you for approval of the school maintenance project grant. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you clarify? Because the picture in there, I was not sure what that was even representing because it looked like there were a couple of different playgrounds, but I thought that was one big playground that Washington had.
Oh, so the little one is before, the big one is after.
No. Okay. and then gray on the outside represents the grass, or, so what is it that's being done? I just wasn't clear.
So can we go to the slide previously? So if you look, this is the work that was done here and here, so you can see how it comes down and gives the ramp. If we go to the next slide. I believe he was circling, like, this is gonna be the area that's going to be green. They're gonna come and do a new thing here, same thing over here. That's gonna be the area green, and they're gonna make a new ramp.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, because those particular pictures weren't in our thing. We just had like one slide that had some shading and I just wasn't sure, but this makes a lot more sense.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next up is Human Resources.
Good evening. I have three new job descriptions for you for approval. The first is the job description for a shared service opportunity, which would be the head of security. The language that is in red is new language to the job description. D75 did not have a job description, so this is modeled after the D120 position with the D75 pieces placed in it. And then any strike through language is language that is to be removed. Any questions about the head of security role?
I was just curious about why they'll report to the superintendent and not someone beneath the superintendent. I'm just curious.
Kevin and I had this discussion, and what Kevin and I can either speak to it or because I asked the same thing, that we need to have it be a report to a shared service administrator. Kevin does have a full plate, but during our discussion, what Kevin shared, and he's correct, is that the head of security, if we hire the right individual, it should be a rather low maintenance supervisory type of role. More of a check-in rather than day-to-day operations or requiring superintendent's permission or authorization to do certain things. So while it does add another direct report to Kevin, of all the other possibilities, Kevin still made the most sense.
This head of security is going to be over both districts. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Correct.
I think that might be one reason that it would be reporting to the superintendent just as a focal point.
They determine in the ratio of time, what our portion would be.
So the intent is not to replicate the services that the head of security would provide District 120, such as hallway monitoring, things like that. The key areas that District 75 needs assistance is for events, planning for events, and coordinating the workers for those events, including traffic controller or creating traffic patterns, creating the appropriate emergency response training, such as ALICE trainings for the staff. And then the last major piece, which is just flown from my brain, and hopefully it comes in the next 30 seconds. It's if there was a situation in which a school would need to be evacuated, to have the plan in place for a relocation for parents to pick up the students if a building needs to be evacuated and alternatives to be made. So
No, I was just curious, expense wise, if we were looking at 30% of a salary, 40, 50, unless that's yet to be determined.
T can answer that.
So we've already taken a look at our cost matrix that determines the percentages for every person, and it's about 57. It's pretty much the same percentages as we have for anyone who works 50-50 at this point. So it's about 57% and 43. So we are the lower portion.
So we're going to continue that for the security person?
Yes, that one will be for the security person.
Do we have any sense how we're breaking up the job then? I mean,
So-
you talked about what they're doing, but what about percentage of time spent with 120 versus 75?
So absent 100% knowledge, of how many hours that person's gonna work. We're using the matrix to do the 47 or 40, whatever, 4357 next year. So this year, we're going to be tracking all the hours, all the information, so that next year we'll have a better idea as to whether or not they are working 50/50. Does that answer your question?
The allocation might be adjusted. Okay,
Following you.
thank you.
I would think there's going to be more time at the high school just because of what's going on there, but there are required reporting and drills that have to occur at both districts, and the security would be able to accomplish that from both of those environments. So there's a lot of things that are duplicated, and there's some things that would be different. And again, from my perspective, I think reporting the superintendent would be very advantageous for a lot of different reasons, especially if there's things that are going on that would need a high level of confidentiality.
And the tasks now are probably embedded in other people's jobs. So once you take them out, and then there might even be areas of enhancement once you have a dedicated person. So it makes sense.
And to have the continuity between the two districts
Yeah.
and have all of the procedures be aligned, makes sense.
No further questions about the head of security. I'm going to move next to the lead district health aide. So the lead district health aide is a new position that is in response to the COVID pandemic. The lead district health aide is going to be the principal party responsible to administer the District 75 Test to Stay program. The building health aides are supporting the nurses in doing medical forms, contact tracing, addressing students with symptoms. This person's responsibility can add value to those roles as their time allows. However, their primary responsibility will be to go to the individual buildings on the COVID testing schedule to do the intake and administration and testing of the students and the staff. Yes. And then the last piece, this is the Saturday Scholars. I'm sorry.
I was trying to find something in a question. So, and I don't know if this is a good question or not, but number 3 under performance, it says communicate any new opt-ins with Shield. And in some of our discussions, there was some questions about how Shield was going to be able to provide services. Would it not be better not to specifically mention a specific vendor?
We can always come back and change. I see what you're saying, that, we should,
If we
rather than,
change, then we gotta change the,
right, we would need to do the change. In all candor, I didn't think of that before you said that, since, but that could be something that could be modified. I think we've turned the corner with our Shield testing. It was a bumpy start, but now that we've had very successful consecutive days of testing for students and staff. So I think our path is dedicated. So unless something sensational occurs, I don't see the need to change that, but I do understand the concern by identifying the vendor.
You could always just add Shield, parentheses, or the current district vendor, or, whatever to accomplish that.
Sorry. I'm smiling and
I know.
trying to get positive body language and forgetting that I'm wearing a mask. So then back to the Saturday Scholars leader. Kevin has the institutional memory of this role, but this is another new position that has been created I don't want to read from the job description and take everybody's time, but this position coordinates 6 sessions of Saturday teaching between January and March to further students' engagement outside of the classroom. And so I think that there's a question or two about this, because Kevin and I discussed this previously, so I'll turn it over to you.
So this job description is new for us. Position has been in place. This was held by a previous employee that taught our Project Challenge courses. And when we replaced that person, because this role was actually paid through what was an overload for their role during the day, meaning the overload, it was equating to saying it was another class that they were teaching. So finding that out, knowing then the person that replaced and took on that role wasn't interested in continuing it or having that role, started to get us asked questions. What does this role really mirror or look like more? And it was much more like what our summer school programming is, where we have that the summer school principal that organizes summer school, oversees summer school while it's taking place, follows up on the request. So that led into the discussion where we started talking with union leadership and breaking this position out. Because it really is more of a supervisory type position. So what we discussed was we would make the job description. We would want to see somebody that would have a type 75 or an admin cert or be working towards that to be able to be in that role. And if that wasn't possible, because we do want this to be available for our staff at 75, look at it being somebody that's looking for leadership roles that wants to develop. Let them have an opportunity if they have the qualifications without the admin part and have an admin on call. So that's why we broke it off into having a separate job description. For the foreseeable future, one of the questions I know we had was it being linked with the Saturday Steamers class? The thought was much kind of like what you brought up, right? We're thinking the Saturday portion, because our foundation does a lot, leaving it as a Saturday program just leaves it open to where it isn't connected specifically to that specific role, trying to make it a little bit more generic. What we've done also is Nikki and I've been in contact, who presented to us today. I let her know what's going on with the position. We do have it posted, so hopefully we'll be getting some applicants come in. We're still hopeful that we can get somebody in position by October to be able to have the classes starting in January and still have the same amount of interest that we've had in years past.
For anyone that hasn't had children participate in the program, it's a really neat 3-hour program on Saturdays that they offer, basically electives that are 1 hour in length. So kids can sign up for 1, 2, or 3, depending on the offerings and their ages and what's offered at the different times. It all takes place, unless it changes, at Sandburg. And that was one of the best parts for my younger kids, was getting to go to the middle school and, for 3 hours and get dropped off and then picked up later, and they get to meet different interests and, do that. So it's a really neat, and there is a cost involved, but it's not cost prohibitive. And I think there's some scholarships and stuff available. So it allows, which as a parent, I've always appreciated that our district did this on Saturdays in the winter when a lot of the activities are lower anyway. Also because, like, in my day, there were all these enrichment classes after school and everything else that I could never participate in because, my mom worked and whatever. So for a working parent, I love that it's on a Saturday morning. Gave me a couple hours to go run errands while they're dropped off. And so, and my kids loved it. So they were disappointed when we couldn't do it last year, but so glad to see that we're setting something up. I just know that and that was one of my questions, because a few years ago when my high schooler was little, it was called Saturday Scholars. And then sometime over the years it changed to Saturday Steamers. So I didn't know if by reinventing this, we were bringing back that, if that meant anything different, but it's to be determined on that. That's fine.
I think part of it for us is, when, at least from my perspective, looking back at the signups, signups are getting kind of narrow and wanting to maybe try to broaden it, because a lot of the classes and what's offered is really by interests and what people want to share of their hobbies or whatnot. So really trying to say it can be anything. We didn't want people to be locked into thinking it had to be science, technology, engineering, arts, or mathematics. I mean, try to go beyond that even if you need to. So
The cooking ones are very popular.
yes.
And it helps you out if they learn how to cook.
If they usually come into the car with a tray full of sweet things that all fall over my car. So yeah, there's great times. But no, it's great, man. Come in with recipes and then recreate. But thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is student services report.
All right, this is our academic topic for the month, I believe. We've come up with the bilingual portion. So Mr. Brian Zach's going to come up and do the presentation. This is about from what we did last spring, right? There are a number of handouts in your folders too that Ryan will reference. The legal size ones all come.
Hi all, thanks for having me here today. All right, I'm here tonight to provide updates as it relates to the linguistic programs in District 75. Next slide, please. Okay, so the order of the presentation is I'll start with the summary of the linguistic task force, which took place last year, which formed the recommendations of linguistic programs. I'll review the recommendations, go over the progress for each of these recommendations, and then also identify some of the next steps. I will explain how we're collecting data in the dual language program, as well as review District 75 data collection, and then I'll share some celebrations. And I'll try my best to smile with my eyes, because I try to smile behind the mask. Okay. Just as a reminder, the Linguistic Task Force convened on October 30th, 2020 for the first time. The board recommendations occurred on April 20th. It involved district leadership, staff members, and parents, and there was a number of interviews, and this is all information that was presented to the board on April 20th. Next slide. So then I'll go over all the recommendations, share the progress we've currently made, and then describe some of the next steps we're trying to take. So the first recommendation was to hire a bilingual director, and I was hired, and I started on July 1st. The second recommendation was to implement a 90-10 two-way dual language model. 90-10, and so these graphics here, which were shared at the April 20th presentation. In blue, you can see the language allocation as it relates to Spanish, and orange is the language allocation as it relates to English. So you see pre-K to 1 is 90% Spanish, 10 English, then it goes 80-20 in second grade, 70-30 in third grade, fourth grade 60-40, 50-50 in fifth grade, 6th through 8th grade is 30% in Spanish, 70% in English. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, well, we returned to that one. So we have already implemented the 90-10 model in kindergarten, and we are currently staffed for the 90-10 model in first grade, and the HR department is engaged for collaborating on ensuring that we have the staff as the roll-up occurs. Next slide, please. The next recommendation was developing a rigorous standards-aligned two-way dual language curriculum. And you can see that in your legal size paper here. This is models of what the curriculum looks like. We partnered with Adelante. So there is a first grade model and it's called the Year at a Glance, first grade and a fifth grade for you to review if you like. So we partnered with Adelante specialists who, in order to create this K-8 dual language curriculum with instruction in English and Spanish. In the curriculum, we have literacy standards, Illinois social science standards, next generation science standards, language standards, both WIDA and Common Core state standards, as well as social justice standards in order to support the goals of bilingualism, biliteracy, and multiculturalism. We will continue to sustain this by scheduling monthly curriculum writing, as well as having a dual language academy over next summer. We had that for 3 days this summer, and we had all but 2 dual language staff participate. Next slide, please. The next recommendation was enhancing instructional practices. And I am currently attending all grade level dual language meetings as a coach, consultant, and collaborator. That's what I did before I became an administrator. As additionally, all the time that we're working with Adelante and these curriculum development, we're really also embedding professional development as it relates to best practices in curriculum instruction and assessment for language instruction. And then moving forward, ensure that dual language teachers and non-dual language teachers have opportunities for differentiated instructional practice, professional development. The next recommendation is prioritize professional development in the areas of multiculturalism, language diversity. Additionally, effective strategies for literacy development in 2 languages, as well as curriculum development. So we have consistency and alignment in the monolingual and dual language programs in which we're using the same standards, the Common Core state standards, as they relate to literacy and math. I am extremely, as you'll see, I'm in math, the teaching and learning department. I'm involved in basically every teaching and learning department meeting. And so all of the developments as they relate to professional development that are occurring in the dual language program are completely consistent and aligned with what we're doing in the monolingual programs. What I'm really trying to, the next steps are providing differentiated support, as well as building capacities and principals, as well as district leadership to continue to sustain this professional development in these areas. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Anna? Gracias. The next 2 recommendations I would lump together. The first one is that District 75 identifies as a dual language district. And additionally, that we enhance our vision as it relates to multilingualism, multiculturalism, and equity. In the 3 months that I've been here, I've collaborated with every single department in order to develop, brainstorm how we can identify as a dual language district as it relates to HR, operations grounds, our PR website, finance, teaching and learning, and ensure that all multilingual staff, as well as I do serve on the district equity leadership team, and on the adult team, we do have multilingual representation just to ensure that that cultural equity perspective is part of the adult team. We've also formed a dual language steering committee in order to build a task force or a committee to work towards the goals outlined in those 2 recommendations. Next slide, please. The next recommendation was developing protocols and guidelines that clearly articulate the dual language program. So I have revised the websites, both the multilingual learner website page and the dual language website page. I've additionally provided protocols to dual language as well as English learner, or we're now calling them multilingual learner teachers, in order to provide a process for identification, notification, and instructional support for multilingual learners. The dual language steering committee also is tasked and working together to develop mission, vision, and value statements that will be connected to the recommendations of the linguistic task force, but also intertwined with the work that we're doing in District 75. Next slide, please. Complete an inventory and evaluation regarding literature and other Spanish resources. So the dual language teachers attended, and I was there also. This is actually in June before I started my time here. But we went to Custom Ed Solutions. The teacher teams all received the year at a glance map, and they were able to, with the assistance of Custom Ed Solution, select bilingual Spanish language, authentic Spanish language text that fit perfectly with their year at a glance. I've additionally audited classroom libraries as well as curricular resources available everywhere from MTSS to what students are reading in their book bins to ensure that in dual language classrooms, we have Spanish language texts that are of high interest and authentic. So moving forward, I just need to make sure that we budget for this. And so I've been inventorying all the books that we've been taking in. So in the case that we had to add a section or something like that, we would know exactly what to purchase and or not purchase. The next 2 recommendations I also lumped together: review hiring practice and establish and strengthen partnerships with institution of higher education. So in collaboration with the HR department, I've been in collaboration with the HR department to hire and retain highly qualified bilingual teachers and beginning to establish relationships with institutions of higher education in order to provide observation student teaching opportunities here in our district so we can recruit some of these members. I am involved with the Aspire Academy also in order to grow our own bilingual educators, because we do have 53% of our student body identifying as Hispanic or Spanish speaking. And moving forward, the HR department will collaborate closely in order to ensure that we have retaining the best bilingual staff that we need, as well as recruiting those that we need as our program develops. Next slide, please. The last recommendation was establishing a family committee for the dual language program. So we facilitate the bilingual parent advisory committee, the BPAC meetings, each and every month, which have events. We have participated in the event, I'm going to say it in Spanish, El Desfile de El Festival de las Fiestas Patrias, in which we went to parade downtown. And and I'll show you some pictures later. We had about 8 to 10 bailes folclóricos, which are traditional folklore dance troupes, as well as a lot of representation in our community. You're going to see some cool pictures later. We will be having an event, most likely, related to El Dia de los Muertos, and an end of the year event. So moving forward, as if we were going to continue to survey and understand the needs and opportunities of the families in the dual language and bilingual programs in order to create family engagement opportunities tailored to what they're strong at and what they need. Next slide, please. So we will be collecting data consistently in order to monitor and analyze growth. Our data collection program in the dual language program is completely consistent and aligned with the District 75 program. I collaborated with Laura Ehas as well as Cindy Samantha in order to tailor it to dual language, but following our same norms. The difference you might see is if you look in terms of the standardized testing that they will be taking, the STAR 360 in K-1, they'll take English early literacy and math, as well as Spanish early literacy in grades 2 to 5, English reading and English math, as well as Spanish reading. 6 through 8, they take English reading, Spanish reading, and English math. This will enable us to have a portrait of the student, not just as a growing literacy and in math, but additionally language. Next slide, please. The goal of the dual language program is bilingualism, biliteracy, and multiculturalism. That said, this is the matrix that we put together in order to look at classroom improvement data, or this is from winter 2020. This is current second graders, but this is an example of the matrix that we will be populating as it relates to the STAR 360 scores. So you see on the x-axis, we have the English early literacy, and on the y-axis is Spanish early literacy. In an ideal situation, and you'll see this indicated in green, green is on the pathway to biliteracy, meaning that the student is proficient, that these are the percentage of students in a classroom that are proficient in both Spanish and English. Blue is approaching the path to biliteracy, meaning that they are proficient in one language, but not quite proficient in this other language. Yellow is literacy growth is significantly stronger in one language than another, and red is literacy growth is not strong in either language. That's the subgroup that we're really going to try to support this year. Next slide, please. In addition to the STAR 360 data, we will be collecting Fontes and Pinnell data. So Fontes and Pinnell, we will be providing, and this is completely consistent with the District 75 plan. We will be doing Fontes and Pinnell for levels A to Z. Spanish, the Fontes and Pinnell kit only exists from level A to N. By 2024, they will have the O to Z in Fontes and Pinnell. So for Spanish, for levels O to Z, we will be using the EDL, o Evaluación del Desarrollo de Lenguaje. Next slide, please. So I went back and forth whether to include the celebrations at the beginning and the end, but I was like, why not have them at the end, just to show some of the work that we've been doing. So this is what I described with the dual language summer curriculum development, where for 3 days we had almost all of the dual language staff here present. Here's Adelante, Amy Mosquera, Mallory Fusel, as well as myself. We were co-facilitating all this professional development. Here you see the teachers putting together unit plans based on the year at a glance that they created. Next slide, please. Here is, in this, you have these samples in your folders, but here is an example of the dual language here at a glance documents that were created in partnership with Adelante. When you see the columns that are in green, that refers to Spanish language. When you see the columns that are in blue, that refers to English language. Right, next slide, please. I also reference as it related to acquiring bilingual and Spanish language books, our time at Custom Ed Solution. Here's some pictures. Here's some of the really cool books that we purchased at Custom Ed Solutions. It was a great opportunity in which the teachers were able to look specifically at their year in a glance and work with a professional to find the right text to support that instruction. Next slide, please. As I described family engagement, here are some pictures, and you see represented here some of our district leadership team. We have Dr. Myers, Mr. Quinn is in here somewhere. I'm hiding there in the background, and everyone wearing white shirts there says Somos Mundelein. In your packs here, you have a little mask that does say Somos Mundelein, the same one that we were distributing at Rockfest a little later. So here you see us in front of Mundelein, the Mundelein Town Hall, in which we're really representing that we're a bilingual and dual language town. We were all present there to support that District 75's alignment.
Right, right. What's Somos mean?
Somos, thanks for asking. Somos means we are. So when it says Somos Mundelein, it just means we are Mundelein. Good question. Next slide, please. I think that also a big part of this as it relates to the retention of dual language staff. The dual language staff right now has provided anecdotally to me a lot of positive feedback as well as to others positive feedback. These were all quotations elicited, provided by email to people and or collected after professional development days. So we see, if you look through these, the dual language staff right now is really feeling supported and excited about the work in which they're engaging. Next slide, please. Right, does anybody have any questions?
Are there grants available that you can get to help with this program?
Each year, so we have a Title III grant. Each year I do complete the Title III grant in which we acquire some funds to support bilingual services specifically. I have applied and acquired that this Title III grant for this year, and we will continue to apply and receive those funds.
On that last slide, I think it really speaks a lot where it said the teacher that 20+ years of teaching and how appreciative and cooperative and everything else. I think that speaks very highly for the future of the program.
And it's really exciting, the whole teaching and learning department and the entire organization supporting these goals, and us, everything we're doing in the dual language program is completely aligned with the goals we have in District 75.
And I think it's important here. I know Hawthorne has had a dual language program for a number of years. So the fact that we're getting into doing this, I think it speaks highly for what we need to do and embracing the community.
Absolutely.
Brian, I know you put the numbers in some of the questions that came up. We're switching to the 90-10 model this past year. What were our enrollment numbers for the class?
I believe it was 69.
Okay, I did provide those, and when I printed this, I put those in the notes section, so I don't have those at the top of my head, but may I look at my computer really quickly?
Sorry.
Yes. Sorry for that.
No, trying to be sure.
76 in kindergarten.
Yep.
63 last year.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott.
Uh-huh.
So kindergarten dual language enrollment has increased from last year to this year.
How many classrooms is that then?
4 sections.
That's 4 teachers, since it's no longer 2 different classes.
That's correct. We have 4 teachers because in the 90-10 model, we really need bilingual educators in order to support the bridging between languages and the translanguaging, especially when you're considering 90% of their day, which is almost all of their day, minus 30 seconds is in Spanish, 30 minutes is in Spanish. We need bilingual people.
Was it difficult finding the teachers or?
Recruiting and hiring bilingual staff is a challenge in Mundelein as well as a challenge everywhere, which is why with the HR department, we are beginning to develop plans and we'll definitely need to continue to form 1 year, 2 year, and 5 year action.
That was one of my questions, Brian, but I wanted to make sure we had something, because I know like as part of the task force, we talked about rolling this out and, 90-10 now, but then obviously there's a plan for the future and, expanding it even more. So I just wanted to make sure, again, we know what kind of environment we're in now, but what's that gonna look like in next year, next fall, so on and so forth. So
Yeah, we're working proactively to be thinking about next year and beyond already as it relates to the recruitment and hiring the teachers, as well as the retention of the high quality teachers that we have in our program.
And it's great to see that all the work that went into this and the professional development has had such a positive impact on the teachers, because I think that's also going to help bring more teachers in once they see, that the teachers are really buying into this and they're excited for it and they feel supported. I hope that word spreads to other bilingual teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. We have we have a lot of enthusiasm around the professional development and growth of our program.
Yeah, it was great to see those teacher comments there. This is incredible too. I know as a teacher, being handed something like this and knowing that, I've kind of got the whole year mapped out is really beneficial.
Absolutely.
And I didn't know how to ask it in the pre-questions, but because it's probably a broader question than just for bilingual programs, but the codes that you have embedded and you kind of alluded to that's coming from Illinois state requirements, or can you explain and I don't mean you to get into the weeds on this. I was just curious how the anchor points and where they come from.
So simply in the row where it says content standards, those will make reference to either Illinois social science standards or NGSS standards. So that's how we're embedding.
What are NG? I guess that's.
NGSS are the.
How many different
Science
sources, I
standards.
guess, do our standards come from? Is probably a simpler question to ask.
Answer that.
How do we, I guess the basic question is, how do we know what we should be teaching our kids? And it's through these standards that exist.
So in the district has prioritized Common Core State's Anchor
Common
Standard 1. So that is also what we are prioritizing in all dual language grade levels in alignment with District 75. So the Common Core State standards are prioritized in our, as well as specifically Anchor Standard 1. We are connecting content standards because that is best practice as it relates to language learning. And the content standards refer to social studies and science. So we have Illinois social studies standards, and then NGSS refers to next generation science standards. And that's how we're embedding the science into our dual language program.
And again, these are all set by the state.
The Illinois social science standards are state assessments. NGSS standards are national wide.
Oh, that was just,
Standards.
I just was curious how the mix was coming into play here. And
Great question.
Brian, I just wanted to follow up on that question I asked about why the F&P and the EDL is not tested in the spring. I guess I should have asked why instead of just how come we're, why are we not testing? Because we seem to be testing most of the other tests happens like 3 times a year. I feel like we're really sort of on that schedule. I was just curious if you have any idea like why we're not doing that.
The reason, as it relates to the dual language program, the
Yeah.
reason why we're doing it is because we're following the District 75 assessment calendar, so the dual language teachers in the same way, as well as the monolingual teachers are doing that fall F&P assessment, as well as the spring late winter F&P assessment. In terms of the why, that is something I would like to check with Cindy as well as Laura in the data collection. And that's if I can look into that and provide a better answer.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Ryan?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the legal sized documents. That's awesome.
So I know it's early in the process with our dual language programming, but I hope what you did here tonight was we're moving forward with a clear philosophy across the district. We have aligned ourselves with both programs, mono and dual language. We have put in place the foundation for being a self-sustaining program, which Ryan went over with the training that we're doing with our staff, that would be more self-sufficient, and it's a train the trainer model. So as we keep learning that, so we're not always as reliant on outside parties being able to come in. And in the bottom end of the day, we're gonna be data informed with how we are doing in the metrics that we've laid out and be able to share that with you. So our next time that you'll hear back is going to be the mid-year review, which I believe is January. And at that meeting, the linguistics program amongst with all the other indicators that we had to determine our progress will be shared with you as a board. So it's a great start for getting a lot of foundational pieces put together for a program that we certainly value. My information certainly will not be as entertaining, but hopefully just as informative. 2 items. First one, it's the second reading for press policy 107. In your packets, I want to share with you 2 items. One, Ryan followed up and was able to provide quite a detailed response that you can take home and read, because it could be considered a short novel in some cases. It is regards to board policy 6160. It doesn't change the information of what the board's approving tonight or would approve tonight. It's really giving you a lot of the details as to what's taking place on the administrative end that relates to that policy. So that will hopefully help you be much more informed. And then the only other thing that I was going to bring forward, Lisa, is based off the conversation that changed in board policy 2240. The first reading. In there, we had, in the absence of the board policy, superintendent's authorized to take appropriate action. That was the standard message. We changed that. It was switched to saying would inform the board. Lisa and I were talking, and one of the things we want to do is make sure that that was clear of when to inform. So what we ended up doing, and it's in your language, it's changed in there to show that superintendent can take appropriate action and then in a timely manner follow up with the board. And that's referencing that if there's not a policy in place. So if there's, and we couldn't think of anything. So over the time that we've had, I mean, everything's pretty much covered, but if something came in or just like, yeah, we don't have anything. In the moment, go ahead and make the best decision possible from my end. Next possible board meeting, depending or earlier, depending on what the issue is, come back to you and say, here was the situation. Here's something I think that we need to consider from your levels, board members. We might need a policy to be able to address this in the future going forward, to keep it clear. So we felt that was probably the most balanced way to be able to list that. Because the original one just said superintendent takes action, and there wasn't a connection back to the board. So it's something that could just keep going. So that's why that was a change that we did make. So that's policy 107 from heard. Lisa, you want to add anything or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless any of the other board members had questions or.
I think all of the questions we identified last time with a couple little things look like they were fixed and changed then in this.
Oh,
And
by
all
the
that.
way, yeah, I like this layout. So
Mhm.
you then took the original comments and put it right in there for us to see. So that was nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I like it. It helped
I know.
identify. Very appreciative.
Very clear picture of what it will look like.
I would like to propose in addition to policy 1:10, the school district legal status.
What?
And it's going to be really symbolic, but I feel like it's important. It was really easy to take a look at this and find what I was looking for because the Illinois Constitution link is right there on the page. And so that was pretty sweet. So of course, I clicked on it and went to it, and the sentence that I would like to add to that policy, because it talks about how, an efficient system of education, district is governed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would love to add, and like I said, it's just a symbolic thing, the line from section 1 of the Article 10 of the state constitution that says the state has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. Because as we all know, based on those blue cards we get in the mail, the state is not really fulfilling that responsibility. So like I said, it's just symbolic, but I just sort of thought, you know what? Since we're quoting the, earlier in that policy, we're quoting the state constitution for education. I thought, you know what, let's throw that in there. Just as like we're making a statement, like the taxpayers are, by virtue of property tax, are really funding the education system. The state is not doing that. So I don't know how anyone feels about that, but I think that's fine.
Where are you, I don't have a problem with it. Where are you proposing in that section that would go?
Probably after that second paragraph, the General Assembly has implemented this mandate through the creation of school districts, 1,000 and not more than 500,000.
So there's a third sentence.
Yeah, there's another section, there's a longer section of that in the Constitution. And then the last line in that section of the Constitution is the state has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education.
One thought could be that we just add a sentence at the end of the first one, since the first line references the Illinois Constitution.
Okay.
That's
Rather
kinda
than
what I was
jumping from
thinking.
Constitution to General Assembly back to the Constitution, that's just why I was
Okay.
not arguing with the substance of what
Yeah,
you said,
that's
but
fine.
just trying to figure out where you want it to
Yeah,
go.
that sounds good.
That's the first paragraph. Second, just add a second sentence to the first paragraph.
The statement you have, Kevin's linked in from the Illinois Constitution, like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Article 10, Section 1. Goal, free schools. I'm sure that'll change everything, but
So it sounds like
Now we're
everybody's
not
fine with that. So tonight then, do you want to approve it with the understanding that we would add that sentence in there? Or would you like to pull this policy and bring it to the next board meeting?
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
About another one?
Well, let's get this one
Finish this
first,
one.
then we'll
I mean,
move
if no one has an objection, I mean, it's just a slight little change.
If it's a quote from the Constitution, I don't think that it's a semantics language that we need to really bring it back and waste time and effort doing that. So I wouldn't have a problem just saying, include that in that second sentence.
Anybody
of
object to that?
paragraph one.
Ray, what's your question?
We're going through these policies. There's one that struck me, this, it talks about a mentoring program,
Which number policies?
2120E1. So I'm curious, this is I assume it's an active policy. And where are we going with it?
Oh, 2120E1.
Oh.
Okay, that's an
It's
exhibit.
exhibit.
So that would not be something we're approving today. That was included for our education. And so you have a question about the mentoring part of it.
And do we follow this? Do we even have it? It would seem to me if we were following this, it would provide a and be more conducive to a welcoming environment.
Oh, so you're right. So, okay, so this is a suggested administrative exhibit that talks about, yeah, so like, did you guys get a buddy when you came on board? No. But mentoring could happen by other means too. So would you like to see us expand on this idea of mentorship for new board members and perhaps be a little
Well,
more?
after reading that and even just basically past experiences have been if somebody is coming in cold, that there would be some process in place. That there's introductions done and awareness. I mean, there's things that are coming and don't know if I speak on behalf of everybody, but I'm speaking. There's things that are coming up that I have no idea what they are. And actually, I reached out to Freddie and Anna and even the superintendent a couple times, and it just doesn't seem that you should have to work that hard to find out what's going on and what has happened in the past, because even some of the discussions with the equity committee, Lisa, when we were talking about some of that, there's already been discussions that I wasn't familiar with when we were first having those. I don't know, it just seems to me that, and it would make, I think, folks more comfortable that are coming into this, knowing what's going on and who their eventual peers are going to be and how do you establish a working relationship. And establish the relationship and solidify it as that process goes. I don't know, this has really jumped out at me.
I know there's I remember seeing the line, the lack of a better word, ad, that for one of the webinars that IASB does, because we get those emails that show, here's all the different upcoming things you can participate in. Any of those, a lot of them do take place at like lunchtime or evenings or whatever, but a lot of them are available for watching on the recorded, so you can watch on your own time. I've gone back and watched a few different ones, but I feel like there was one or two on the topic of, how to create a mentoring program for your board and to welcome new members. So I think that's not a bad idea for us to explore. And that would probably be one way to at least start, by getting some information about how other boards do it, because that would be probably a good resource for us to start with to do so.
Yeah, because I think Christy and I probably felt the same way as you did. We like, it was just huge black holes of, that it takes time to learn some of the things. And right, like you said, reaching out to people. I remember T and I had a conversation about funding, just because that was so foreign to me. So, yeah.
I know we have these committees. It might not be a consideration for a committee that we put it up in front and make sure it's there. It's viable as we start moving forward and going through things that kind of close that black hole as you refer to.
I think at one point we talked about, I think Kevin tries to do a good job too of asking, is there any topic we want to hear about? Like way back when I first sat on the board, I was curious about the health plans that we provided for the teachers. And at some point we were going to have the person in, but then anyway, I was able to understand how the health plan was, so I didn't feel we needed that, but that could be something, that's just one example of, what do we or you as a board member want to know about? Like I said, he was so patient with me those first couple of board meetings, trying to understand the financial statements was really, that was my biggest challenge. And it really took her one-on-one with me to get me comfortable with understanding the financials. So I think too, if we need a broader explanation of a topic, we have to also voice our.
But if you read through this, it's even deeper than that. I mean, it's more of somebody that you can reach out to, and it even talks about this mentor introducing the member to other members and becomes a bridge in terms of establishing that not only a knowledge base, but a relationship base with the rest of the board.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I don't think until we saw this, that this was part of the materials. Because again, it's not a policy, it's more of a
and-
suggested practice.
As I remember seeing from the full reading last month, that the exhibits actually don't, I don't think appear on the,
We're not in the policy.
they're not in the policy.
yeah.
They're there for us to look at and review, you know, just to have as educational. It's, but they don't actually appear like on the website.
So
with
this
the
is
policies.
really great that you brought this up. So this is a suggested approach that we could take that we don't. As, well, we don't as formally as this is suggested.
Maybe as a suggestion, since we are on the policy committee, we can look further at the policy that this particular exhibit references and goes back to, because I don't,
Okay, yeah.
and then look at it and see, because there may be more, this might be where there was a change, but there may be other ones where no changes were needed or addressed that don't appear then in this particular reading. That we should go back and look and see, we don't need to recreate the wheel. So if there is something for us to look at and do, and maybe we can,
But even if we
Follow
don't
up on that?
go through all of that, I mean, I don't know that it's creating the wheel, it's like, you know, you get elected to the school board, you walk into this room and you sit here. You don't know anybody, you don't know anything that's going on, you don't know who you're supposed to reach out to. you
I
don't know
agree with-
if you're supposed to reach out.
sure. I agree with you. I'm just saying, let's look and see what this exhibit references so that we can implement it here,
Right.
like
Yeah.
you're bringing up. I agree. I'm
Right.
not disagreeing. I'm saying, let's follow the template that if they've put together a template,
Right.
let's implement it and follow it. So let us
Right.
look into that so that we can bring that back and then maybe we can look into that further. Good idea.
So the note on this is to implement this as presented. So do we want to take this one out and maybe customize it? Since we've never really done this before? And like Christy said, we could see maybe there's some other more useful suggestions that we can include in here.
Well, it says this is a draft update because it looks like this is just a,
Yeah. This is
For
looks
new
like it's a
policies.
formal mentoring program where when Ray gets seated, I get assigned to him. When Freddie got seated, you know.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a
And-
great idea.
And that's why I'm saying, maybe let's look through the policy piece a little bit more, so pull this one out so we can develop it and then maybe get that implemented and put together.
Sure.
Before we have another, you know, obviously we've got a little time, but, and then we can figure out how to transitionally implement it maybe between now and then for.
Yeah, I think you
For
can
the
use
newer
that as
members.
a guide as to how you want to, because,
Sure.
you know, you maybe want it to be a little more specific to the district and whatever, and, you know, even though there are general things that are similar in each district, you know, finances for one thing, and some of the other stuff.
And some of it too, I think Kevin does it kind of, Dr. Myers does it kind of naturally, like when we're all sitting. I'm trying to think, like maybe it was the welcome back to the teachers. I think you specifically called out our new board members, you know, which is kind of what this is suggesting, kind of a good manners type of approach to things.
And I would be able to look it through ISB and see if there's something, and then if I find something, I can share it with everybody so that you can, if you choose to, I'm not putting more on your, but then we can watch it so that we can all get some ideas to implement.
Yeah, and be more formal, have a one-on-one meeting with a new board member, the mentoree and the mentor.
But
Yeah, we have a 2:120. Actually, the exhibits are showing up in there too. This exhibit we're talking about is showing up on our board policies.
Online.
I'm looking at it right now. They're surprised to see it there.
Because I thought that we were told that the exhibits
Yeah, I
don't
didn't
show
think
up,
these
so that's
did
interesting.
show up, but
Yeah, so I don't know. There's 2 exhibits in this policy, actually.
yes, the next one, the website
Yeah.
listing of development, we do that.
So let me I just want to ask a clarifying question. So you feel like, because we've sort of always done it informal, you feel like it needs to be more formal? Like Christie is your mentor or whatever, you would like to see it that way?
yeah, I think so. I think that's important to have somebody that, and instead of me trying to seek somebody out, that it's the other way around, that
Okay.
that's mentor is seeking people out and having conversations, and like I say, I mean, Trey doesn't know it, but he's my mentor. Which I appreciate, by the way. But, I mean, it can be formalized, you know, to some degree, but I'm not suggesting that it's so rigid and black and white that, you know, if you move it, it's gonna crack and break.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
something.
I agree. I mean, like last year when I joined, right in April, in the midst of COVID, I didn't get to see anyone in real person until, I don't know, when was our first back in person? So my first 3 or 4 board meetings were via Zoom. But Kevin, you and Lisa did a great job introducing me and just kind of giving me a crash course on what a board meeting is gonna be like. But I think having something formalized, I think would be a huge help. Again, just from being a newer board member myself, and then Lisa and Christian, you guys are too, so.
Well, and Lisa and I kind of had each other to.
Yeah, and that helps.
Help each other,
Yeah,
but yeah,
because-
but I don't
Me,
know.
was
now.
because I was behind the screen watching you all guys talk, and I was like, my head was spinning. I'm not gonna lie, right? I mean, now it's a million times better, but those first.
It still
board
spins
meetings-
occasionally
Yeah.
because
Oh,
some of
for
the
sure.
topic, yeah. So, but, and I do like the approach that the administration is using to try to make a routine out of the topics so that we all know what to expect to come up. That actually helps
Yes.
because it helps
Yeah.
organize the chaos so that we don't feel like, wait, what's this month? What are we doing?
Very
Why?
much so.
That helps
Yeah,
put a
that
cycle
was-
to
that
things
was
Agreed.
huge,
and do that.
having the development of the calendar, yeah.
which I think is good. But I don't disagree with that, and I would just like the opportunity to look into it a little bit more so that we can come back with ideas and do that.
Yeah, we could do a little mini training, you know, here's some suggested videos on the Illinois Association of Boards that we suggest you watch, and then so-and-so will be, you know, the most fine, you know.
Plus, we see the-
I
we
think
just
I
see
have
the
a
new board,
vision
so
of what
we
you're
can
talking
develop
about,
this
yeah.
in preparation for
Right.
2 years.
For
from
another-
now.
And I will say too, having attended the IASB, and I know a lot of us are going to that, that is super helpful too, because it's basically 2 days of tons of conferences and things, and you do learn a lot, you do a lot, and you know, that just
I
reiterating.
believe that there's almost every year there's a session
Uh-huh.
for new board members.
And there's coffee, as I recall, like on Sunday morning, there were like coffee talks, which were much smaller, more informal. Who knows how they're gonna do it this year, but you know, where you could sit back rather than being talked to, and you know, it was more
Could have a
interactive.
discussion.
Yeah, and those were really helpful, and that's why I have tried, when I see a topic on the emails that come through, I do scan through it, and you know, every so often I will sign up and take one, and if I don't actually get to it live, then I follow up and watch it later, and it is helpful, and it helps just
Yeah.
solidify some of the stuff and have it gel a little better, but it will start to make sense.
Great, thank you, Rick. Any other policy questions? Anyone?
Last item in the section is the board does need to pass a resolution for the nominated IASB delegate. And Christie mentioned that she was willing to do that again for the board. In conversation, we do need to actually have an official board action to take place and making
We already
this.
did that.
We can act on it. I don't
We
think we
can
did.
pass a resolution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was when we were doing like all the committee.
We assigned me to it, because I saw that come up and I was like, well, that's interesting, I thought I was wrong.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Yeah,
We
wait a
have to
minute.
vote yet.
sorry. One last chance.
No, it's fine.
And then that would be it for items in my section of the report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, we've sort of talked a lot about policies already for the board policy committee update. Anything else? Ladies, would like to add? No, you're gonna look at this one? No? Okay. Okay, good. All right, and then is there anything to report from the finance advisory committee?
Our next meeting is soon,
Tuesday.
right? Oh, that's in.
And we have 5-year projection coming up? Is that what I heard, Chief? No?
October, that's we're doing our capacity
Oh,
enrollment
yeah.
presentation.
Oh, capacity, okay. Got it. Okay. All right, next one is representative updates. Anything from the STEAM Foundation besides the fact that Nikki brought us a $10,000 check tonight?
I know that I was not able to go to Bratfest because I had Girl Scout camping. But I know they had a table there and they were doing that, so we all made up little kits ahead of time so that we didn't have to have as much interaction and hands-on stuff there. there is organization of another virtual event they're looking to do in December. Some more information will be coming out about that. It's similar to the bingo night that they did last year. They're gonna try to do that again because we don't think that the pizza throwdown is likely to happen again this year. So they're doing that. So more information I'll bring as that comes up, but otherwise, Nikki already pretty much updated us on. I would say that I would love at some point when that all gets kind of up and going, I would love to be able to have an opportunity to go tour the new. Thing, but we'll get there. That's it.
Community outreach, village liaison, Ray. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to kind of bring the board up to date on something that I think is a potentially has an effect on the board or the school districts. They just passed a utility tax, which is a additional tax on electric and natural gas use. And one of the things looking at the ordinance that they passed, they included school districts, art districts, and libraries. So we kind of started looking at some of this and found some ordinances from some of the other communities. There's a lot of communities that have utility taxes, but some of them don't have school districts. But the ones that have school districts have exempted school districts from the tax. One of the things that struck me about this was I see it as we're basically double banging the residents. Because they're paying their tax. Then they're paying the school district, which is taking that money and moving it across to the village. So T and Dr. Myers kind of talked a little bit about it. So they've kind of taken the ball and they're trying to get some clarification on what and how this is going to look for the school. I mean, we got 5 different buildings in District 75 and plus the high school. So I don't know how substantial that would be, but I don't know that we want any part of that, you know, that just could have a net negative impact, I think, on us. So keep you posted.
Thank you. Yeah, I was reading that in the paper. It just seems like poorly timed. But anyway. CEDAW, anything here?
Yeah, not too much. The tentative budget that I reported on last time was passed. In the last board packet, I've made special note of some of the new hires and resignations in the area of paraprofessionals, just since that was a topic that we were also talking about. So they recently had 5 para resignations, but 5 new hires. Their lowest hire rate with the 5 new hires was at $16.32 an hour, and their highest was at $18.58 an hour. That was with the master's degree. So just thought I'd share that. It's on topic for us. They did extend their collective bargaining agreement with the teachers union. They just extended the previous one. They're also working through challenges with their COVID testing. They've got a partnership with Abbott and they're doing antigen testings for, I don't really understand what that means, but they have Abbott test for anybody that's a close contact, and then they're using a PCR test in a partnership with O'Hare Laboratories for any unvaccinated staff. And they're still trying to figure out how they can do weekly testing for everybody. That's it. The next governing board meeting is in December, so I'll have more to report on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. And last one is the Special Board Committee on Equity.
Yeah, so we have a meeting, mostly it'll be again, solidifying and informing and putting down what our first meeting is gonna look like. We have 5 people who have applied. Two of them, they're a couple, so that was kind of nice. We have a couple that's joining as well as then 3 more individuals. I've already provided Anna with the agenda to be publicly posted, but I will be sharing with all of you a little more detail about what we're going to talk about Monday, and specifically, some ideas that the 3. And that's another thing. Can we just clarify who's the equity committee? I know it's me, Freddie, and it's one place it said Al, and one place it said Christie, and I know we're just all on it, but I just wanted to be.
I'm, after Sunday, I'm free.
So
I thought we had done 4, but it doesn't
do we
matter
have
to
4?
me.
Okay, because that's fine. I just
It
wanted,
doesn't matter to me
I
either way.
think I've been missing people on emails just because I wasn't quite sure who I should be sending it to as the core team versus the entire team, which is.
I'm not offended either way, whatever.
Okay.
It's fine. As long as I'm
Too
included on
out,
the
I missed
agenda
it.
and the gift.
So anyway, I'll be sending out more details and some ideas for you to brainstorm ideas around and ideas of what we think we can reasonably accomplish once we see these new people for the first meeting, and then that'll kind of drive the calendar going forward.
Okay, great.
We still have a few more days if there's anybody out there that is still contemplating, because some people are last minute. I will admit.
There are
to being one.
applications available, so.
Give
if
me a
anyone-
deadline and I'll probably get it to you right before this.
Hopefully there'll be a few more than.
Yeah.
Fine.
All right, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. We're gonna do the August 24th board meeting minutes, the August 30th equity committee meeting minutes, the personnel report, the bill list, the treasurer's report, and the annual renewal list. I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented tonight.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hitzke. Secretary, please call the roll.
Polly.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye.
Your aye. Pelletier.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Okay, next is board action items. First one is the school maintenance project grant application. I move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the Illinois State Board of Education school maintenance project grant application as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Polly.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Gallegos.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
Pelletier.
Aye.
Next item is the job description approval. Move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the shared services, head of security, lead district health aide, and Saturday scholars leader job descriptions as presented.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Polly.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Pelletier.
Aye.
Gallegos.
Aye. Next is the press policy 107, second and final reading. I move the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve press policy number 107, second and final reading as presented.
Were we going to pull out,
We have to pull up the exhibit.
or did we want to just do it? We can always amend it later.
Well, it's already in the policy though.
Okay,
Okay.
It's already there.
that's fine. I'm fine with it. I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
So we didn't forget. I'm not objecting.
Yep.
Okay. And who seconded? I'm sorry. Thank you. Polly.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Gallegos.
Aye.
Rhodes.
Aye.
Pelletier.
That was the best one.
I move that the Board of Education accept the superintendent's recommendation to select Christy Fingerhut, board member, as the Illinois Association of School Board IASB delegate from Mundelein Elementary School District 75. Secretary, please call the roll.
Polly.
Aye.
Pelletier.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Gallegos.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
Okay, next, the next item on the agenda is executive session. I move that the board go into executive session for the discussion of collective bargaining matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives.
Second.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Polly.
Aye.
Fingerhut. Aye. Gallegos.
Aye.
Hitzke.
Aye.
Pelletier.
Aye.
St. Clair.
Aye.
Got the time.
8:21. Here.
Rose.
Here.
St. Clair. Here. Hitzke.
Here.
Okay, here goes.
Here.
Figurehead, here, village
Yeah,
here.
and behind the back.
Okay, the last item on the agenda for tonight is President's prerogative. I always ask, does anyone have anything that they would like to put on the agenda for a future meeting?
Not necessarily on the agenda, but as I mentioned earlier, would like to see, the progress once it gets a little bit more up and running with the media center. It would be nice to see that, which then led me to believe also, or to think also, because I can't keep track, have we done tours
I was
this
thinking
year,
the
or
same
was that
thing.
last year with the new board members anyway? I know we,
It was.
time flies, I can't.
So
Yeah.
2 years ago that we did tours.
And since we have some new board members, perhaps that would be something to look
Yeah.
into scheduling. Not highest priority, clearly, but something just to think about planning, because I think that would be
Maybe
helpful
schedule
for,
Sandberg like after the media lab is
Yeah.
more up and running, yeah.
Okay.
at least for Sandberg, but maybe for the others, we could do a little.
Anything
Kind
else?
of informal
Anyone's
mentoring.
interested?
No, it's a good idea.
Next month, we're gonna talk about capacity, building capacity, and so Kevin's gonna wrap in an enrollment report for like beginning of the year so far. He did a little mini update in a Friday Focus, a couple, or what do you call it? Not Friday
Friday
Focus.
update.
Friday Update. Friday Focus was the old one. Friday Update. So we'll have that in October. I was thinking, as we were talking about the mentor thing before, I was thinking, is there any jargon or like acronyms that newer board members need to know about? I mean, Al's been around for forever, so he's probably good, and you work in the school, so you might be good. Maybe Ray or Freddie, have anything like confusing or something you don't understand?
Now you ask.
No, I mean, I think everybody in their presentations lately has been good about defining it the first time and then going on with the
Or I'll ask,
abbreviation, or we'll ask.
because I'll say, what does that
Right.
mean? I don't know what that, oh, yes, okay. You're not a teacher.
I feel good on the jargon, but I definitely am interested in the mentor idea. That sounds
Okay.
good.
Great. Okay, and then going along with the mentor thing, when I looked up the policy in our thing, it talks about the IASB workshops for new board members. Have you guys been doing those? Has that
I've
happened?
done a couple, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And do you still need to do it, or are you good?
I'll probably look at it just to.
Okay, great. I was just curious, because I didn't know. I mean, I assumed you guys had, but I wasn't sure, so I just thought I would.
Anna's probably
The
on top of that.
required ones
Yeah.
are updated on the web, I think.
I don't hunt you down if you don't.
Yeah, but I have a check.
I did actually the other day,
I'm gonna-
because I was curious.
How are we doing? Okay.
We're all,
Okay.
Pretty good.
There's-
No one's in jail yet.
Yeah, there's also the district meeting, the
Lakes.
lakes,
In October.
yeah, in October, so I
They
don't
didn't
remember.
Oh,
have them
yeah,
last
yeah,
year,
It's
right?
only a couple weeks away.
No, I don't think
Virtually.
they did a
Yeah,
couple virtually,
Yeah, but this one's in.
but it's a
person
little
here.
different. It's back to, they usually used to do them in person like this.
Yeah,
Is it the
very nice
13th?
dinner.
Is that right? The 13th, is that still right?
October
Yes,
13th.
It's in my phone, I
That's
don't remember,
all
but yeah,
looking. It's
yeah.
not in my, but yeah, I don't think, because I
It
don't.
was a
think I can
Wednesday,
go.
I know that one.
It's I think it's Wednesday, 13th, so it's like the week before.
Yes.
That's why I wasn't sure if we need to talk about it now, just to make sure. I confirm.
Probably. Probably.
I confirmed, yeah.
oh, okay.
I cannot.
No?
Bad day for me. Okay, and then the last thing is, I will send out exit slips for the meeting. Pull it up. Appreciate it. Anything else for the good of the group?
Oh, it's the cause. I thought. They say it's the cause.
Oh, it's just a group tonight. I want to be all inclusive for all the new people and mentor them along the way, you know? Okay. Hearing nothing else, I move that we, sorry, if there is no further business to come before the board, the meeting stands adjourned. Will the secretary please call the roll, or do we wait? Oh, I
I
don't
think
know.
just move to adjourn and we
Yeah,
don't have to second.
I move to
All in
adjourn.
favor?
Anyone
All in
want to
favor,
second?
say aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed to adjourning? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.